Oh, cool.
Okay, I'd like to call the Infrastructure Committee meeting to order. Roll call. It looks like everybody's here that's on the committee, and most of staff. The first thing on the agenda then is there any public comments? I don't see any publics, so I guess we'll just move on from there. Approval of the minutes for September 9th, 2024.
Motion to approve.
Second? Who seconded? John? Okay.
Put me on the record.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
See Matt?
Update on current projects.
This is something new that we haven't done before for this committee, especially since it's become the infrastructure committee versus transportation. So I just included in here a quick recap, like the water tower project. This is what we plan on doing in 2025, which is the outside of Harvard Hills Tower and the stem for Lions Park. Now, for the Lions Park part, it's the inside of the stem. That's what I should have noted in here. There's been questions about the Route 14 bridge. IDOT has received the resolution and a letter that clarified about the missing parts that weren't in the resolution. So I've already talked to Jose Rios over at IDOT, and we're lining up a meeting to talk about next steps, including the possibility of the city essentially charging IDOT, but taking care of the work ourselves so that we can get the Route 14 bridge and other areas throughout the city. Like we got weeds over at Marengo and 173 that need to be taken care of. Surf Internet is, sorry.
One of the problems we had with that, though, is we never had the equipment to do it.
Right.
And, for the sidewalks, because they're so narrow, and we didn't have anything other than a shovel that we could use to remove snow on that. So that has to be resolved. I mean, it's okay to bill them, but we also have to do it.
No, your point exactly. Right now, the big part is to start the conversation so we can figure out either they're going to do it or we're going to do it. And if we have to even subcontract it out to have someone do it, who's paying for it?
Yeah, because it's going to take somebody with one of those, I don't know the right words for them, but those little four-wheel things with a brush on it, right? Or
Gator or whatnot, UTV.
To do the sidewalk, you mean, the snow?
Yeah.
Yeah, yeah. And we only have to clear one side of it. We don't have to do both sides.
Right.
Just have a path.
Well, I would say do both, especially if IDOT's going to pay.
Well, that's true. Yeah.
Well, again, let's find out. But the thing is, the resolution did its impact. It's starting a conversation. Representatives from Sosnowski and Severson have also chimed in. They want to know what the progress is on this. So we did what we needed to do initially to get the conversations going. So Surf Internet has already broke ground. We had a groundbreaking ceremony last Friday. That should be about 9 to 10 months, 9 to 12 or 9 to 11 months for them to complete.
Who was invited to that?
It was representatives from Surf Internet and just some representatives from the city office. Yeah, if there was a slight, I apologize.
Is it because I didn't know about it until everyone started sharing the advertisement on Facebook? And I'm like, oh, it is actually going on.
Were you there?
No, I just saw the advertisement.
No, I'm not sure who would want to go, but it would have been nice to know that it.
I should say that my desire to get in front of all that was stymied a little bit by the vendor itself. We are still waiting on their press release to share it so everybody knows what's going on. So my anticipation is that we would have that this week so that we can properly publicize what's going on.
So, Mayor, they started advertising it before they even put a press release out?
Yes, they did.
But I have to say though, that there's a lesson, I think, in what they did. When I talk about communication like I do all the time, this is what I'm talking about. They did an excellent job, I thought, of using several methods of getting the message out. I particularly like the letter from the CEO that I think every resident got, or every landowner, that said that, I promise you that we won't leave any divots. You know, we will, if we're going to come back in a month after we dig it up and we put the grass back on, we're going to come back in a month, and then we're going to come back in the spring and do it again. Make sure that the grass grew and all that sort of thing. Plus, I thought those flyers did an excellent job of explaining what they're doing. And they kept the sales part out of it, of you hooking up till later.
Mhm.
But I think that just getting that kind of message out to the public is a really important thing. And this is an example of somebody who has a marketing department, who actually puts this stuff together and says, this is how we're going to sell this. Right?
Yeah, but didn't only one part of town got those letters?
Yeah, I never
We didn't get the
received it.
letters.
Keep in mind, when they presented that, what they were going to do is they were going to start in one section of town and build through. So part of them doing the postings and all
Are they gonna share with
that.
us what that plan is?
Donovan, did we get a copy of their construction plan? Yeah, I believe we did. You were, I think, out when it first arrived, and Ann was out with illness, so
I do
yeah,
know
we do have a copy.
I do know that we left it up to their discretion. They said they were going to do it in sections, but I don't think we told them that we wanted any particular section before
No,
another.
no, I'm not saying that, I'm not saying we did. I was just wondering what the plan is. And I think maybe people should, maybe that should be on our website that.
Okay.
So, you know when your turn is, basically.
Yeah, because people are going to be like, well, this park got it, why didn't we get it yet?
They're
Whoa.
they're rolling it out right now. We have copies of the preliminary plan, but it's being adjusted as it goes. They've already hit a couple NICOR lines, so
So those are the ones, okay, that we've got called to.
yeah. So
I was
they've-
wondering who was keep hitting them.
They've hit a couple of NICOR lines, and we've also had some issues with them changing.
Isn't Julie out there though?
Yes, but just because Julie's out there doesn't mean it was marked accurately, or they're not, you have to hand dig within 18 inches of the mark. And where they were hand digging, they actually took out somebody's service, just with a shovel. So that was another one that they were doing. So right now, they're sort of over here by City Hall, and the plan's just spreading out from there. I know they're having some trouble with IDOT and getting permission to cross, so that's gonna add some time.
And are they gonna be doing all this in the front or the back, or depends where?
It really depends where. Most of the work is gonna be, let me try trading out.
Stereo?
Most of the work, most of the work's gonna be in the front, just for accessibility and maintenance. Where appropriate, I know there's a couple spots where, due to other utilities, they've had to jump across the road or redo their plan.
So how about like subdivisions? Are they going to go, because like my subdivision, everything's in the back, all the utilities.
Mhm.
Are they going to run that way, or are they going to still go in the front?
I think the idea behind SURF is that most of it's gonna be in the front for accessibility, or it's either gonna be in the right of way or, easements. Over by you, I think it's in the front. I'll have to double check. We have 170 pages of document of, basically an overall plan. They can push 270 feet of fiber in a day, which has kept our locating capabilities really taxed.
Yeah.
And especially when they have two crews now. We're keeping up, but it's everything we have to, I'm gonna blow out my budget for marking paint this year because they're all over the place.
All right. No, I just was wondering, because like I said, and I know the newer subdivision, not just mine, all the utilities in the back, and actually my property, for my subdivision, it all branches out to the rest of the subdivision. So I have all the lines that go in my backyard. And I found that out when I had to mark something. They
Right.
told me, like, Wait, everything goes through your property.
And there is a change in that. A lot of the utility companies and the cities have basically come to the agreement that that is going to be a thing of the past, because when it comes to maintenance and servicing that kind of stuff, putting fences over, having utilities in the backyard ends up being more cumbersome. You know, is it visually appealing to not have those boxes in the front? Sure. But then when it comes to actually maintaining and taking care of that infrastructure, it's really difficult. So a lot of the municipalities and the builders are moving that stuff back out into the right of way.
Thank you.
Okay. This is not in the report. I noticed that it's on the agenda, though. The post office is on hold right now. I added in the wastewater pond just to let you know that we have done some testing, and we do not have any heavy metals in it. So that means that we can dredge from time to time, and that'll help extend the life of the pond. You're supposed to dredge every 20 years, but it has been a long time since we've done it. So this is something that is not a priority, thanks to it not having heavy metals, but we do need to keep in mind of it.
Where's this pond?
Behind the Public
Yeah.
Works building.
Behind it?
Between that and Shadow Creek.
Never noticed.
You can go canoeing if you want.
Yeah, got good fishing back there.
Definitely some, yeah, plenty of turtles.
Lou, on
Yes.
the post office thing, I think how that got on there was, it was a question about the TIF and,
Right, and I just want to have something specific on the post office, but it wasn't in my report, so the next report will have something in there.
that's fine, but
Okay.
it made me think of a question is, you know, the reason we haven't gotten anything on the,
Moose,
on the,
Public Works, wastewater plant.
Okay, so that pond doesn't belong to the subdivision?
No, that's
This
that
pond is
pond
what
is.
Actually, the pond doesn't belong to the subdivision either, neither one of them. It actually belongs to the
Yeah,
city.
but that pond is in the subdivision. That's
Yeah.
what, that's what John wanted.
Yes,
Correct.
this pond is in this subdivision. This is the wastewater. Sorry.
but, you know, the TIF is not happening was because of the, you know, they haven't done their part, right? The old police station, where they haven't given you the information about, the ball's in their court, right? For the.
Ball's in their court. Donovan, can you chime in on that?
They're currently conducting the feasibility study and plan, so we should have that within a week or two.
Yeah, but the TIF was much larger than that, though.
The TIF area, we had a general idea of what we would like to see, but then it's still up to the council to determine what do you want to include in the TIF.
So who does that part of the plan? Just,
Well, we make suggestions, and then you all decide.
no, I mean, well, there's more to it than that, isn't there? All
We-
those forms and stuff that you have to be done. And the only reason I'm asking is because that street that's through there that's in very, very bad shape,
Eastman?
yeah, is part of that TIF perhaps.
Yeah, in our original designs, we wanted to include Eastman because of that.
Right.
And then
So-
that would include the post office
Is
as
there
well.
anything the city needs to do to move that forward?
Nothing right now until we have the feasibility study back.
Okay.
So that's why it'll be on this list, and then it'll be updated as more information comes along.
Okay. And you had a meeting in October did you have the meeting in October with CMAP on the bike path?
It was just an intro meeting, and that's actually going to be in my admin report, but I can include it in here.
And lastly, Civic Plus. Did you have that meeting?
About doing the website?
Yeah. Well,
Yeah.
You know, upgrading their systems.
Yeah, and I've got a follow-up meeting coming up to verify what the charges are, and then yeah, I might be able to bring it in by the admin committee if I can
Into what?
add it to the admin committee, or would you rather it be here?
Oh, I don't know. I just thought that either one's fine, I guess, but I would like to be, one of our committees at least, to be able to get a presentation from them on what they think is needed and going forward. And-
Which one of the committees did we assign it to, though? I can't remember. Was that this one or admin?
Well, it's,
Because this is more general purpose, I would probably suggest that it goes to the
but it's also
admin.
part of, well, it was, I don't know how it ended up here, but it you know, I think it was because it was considered part of infrastructure in some way. But it doesn't matter. I don't care.
Yeah.
It's just so that, you know, that we get the exposure from Civic Plus of what they are going to offer and so on, so we have some idea on where we sit, right?
Yeah, I can,
Because I can think of a whole bunch of questions
Okay.
I'd like to ask them, you know, about, and then maybe help understand what is possible and for how much. Right?
Okay.
But these are just things I had in my notes that were part of discussions in the past, and I just wanted to see where we were with them.
I'll add it to the update list.
Okay. Anything else on the update?
No.
Discussion, direction, sidewalk, long-term plan.
So this is actually going to be a combination between the two, and we had a brief meeting, so the team is on the same page. And so it's a combination between the road rehabilitation study and the sidewalk plan. After talking with Gary and reviewing, actually, pass this out. What I just passed out is Ann's map. Do you have?
Oh, sure. Thank you.
Give you all a moment.
You know, this is a very large sheet of paper with a very small, important part.
The legend, you can't really read the legend. Gotta take a picture of it with your phone and blow it up. That's how that works.
Well, I'm only going off of the colors I knew before. I'm assuming red is bad.
Red is very bad.
I'm not getting my gold street anytime soon. Everyone jokes about.
So what this map is Ann had put this together. She had examined all of the sidewalks that we have, and then rated them blue, purple, yellow, and red, and kind of in that order, for with blue being good and red being bad, very bad. Sorry, to use her terms. So what I'm trying to propose here, because there's been a lot of arguments or discussions going back and forth on what to do for the sidewalks. And this is where it ties into the road rehabilitation study, is dedicating money, the 1% to go towards roads, going curb to curb, and then my initial proposal and in the memo was to use the MFT funds to do sidewalks. But after talking with Gary, we could potentially use just 1% or some of the 1% for sidewalk, and then dedicate the MFT funds to go along with the 1% so we can actually get a bit more roadway. The idea, and this is why I'm mentioning it this way, the idea is to take the $100,000 that we normally take out of general fund and be able to put it back in general fund, because we could use that for other projects.
We only did that for 1 year.
I think 2 now.
That was 3.
At least 2 that I know of. Yep.
Okay.
2 years. So it's not like a real, I mean,
Well, it's also to remove that as an option.
well, that's
no.
fine.
To go along with this, and there's been a slight change in the memo since, or should be in the memo since we talked about 45 minutes ago or so. Based on discussions with Gary, the suggestion is we don't necessarily have to do a full-blown sidewalk master plan because of the detail of the map and kind of putting together a rule of thumb, that if we're going to do a stretch of road, why don't we do the sidewalks along with it? So we're doing essentially going from curb to curb on the road project to doing sidewalk to sidewalk.
Quick question with that.
Yeah.
How many roads are in bad repair, but the sidewalks
Well,
are still fine, and we don't need to
and
touch?
keep in mind, and I'm glad you asked that.
Yeah.
So the idea isn't just to rip up sidewalk just to do sidewalk. It's to do the sidewalks that have already been rated as either yellow, purple, or red.
What does red mean, though? What does it mean?
Very bad.
No, what's bad mean then? Okay. What does bad mean?
This is based on the scores
Does
that,
it mean ugly? Does it mean completely unsafe and somebody's going to kill themselves? What does it mean?
I don't have that answer.
This is often, when Ann did this, what, 3 years ago? Mayor?
I did this in 2009, so about 5 years ago. Or 2019, I said 2009,
I
my
understand what you
apologies.
meant.
Ann,
Yeah,
Ann said
sorry.
that she used the Pacer's suggested method for
I remember her telling us that.
this. So based upon walkability and trip hazards and just general condition.
Because it seems to me that if you know, once we've decided that we own the repair of the sidewalks, we also own the liability for that, right? I mean, in other words, if they're not repaired and they're dangerous, whoever is responsible for those sidewalks needs to fix them, right?
Correct.
But there's an awful lot of red in there, and I don't think we can afford to do that very quick. Or, you know, my feeling was that I was hoping it was a lot less than that. That you know, the actual dangerous, where there's like a 2-inch drop, or there's you know, it's gone down to the point where it's collecting water, or whatever, was a much smaller subset.
Very optimistic, Charlie.
Well, I'm just saying, that's what I was kind of hoping for, that we could, you know, then identify the very worst and fix it wherever that very worst is on an as-needed basis, you know. I mean, we actually do have a ordinance, and I don't know if I can find it real quick here or not, but
I'm interested in knowing, because when I look at this map, let's take McKinley Street, for example. I know for a fact that there is no sidewalk all the way down McKinley Street.
That's why it's not there. I remember Ann doing this. This is only where the sidewalks were.
So, yes,
We
this
also
is on,
started implementing,
And that should be noted
adding
that, yes.
sidewalks as well. That's when we started around the
Yes.
schools, when we started this.
so what should be noted from this map is there's a bunch of streets that don't have any sidewalk on it currently. And of course, my contention has always been, if there is no sidewalk, that should be borne by the property owner that is adjacent to it, because our current subdivision standards require, when a house is built, the sidewalk is put in. And who bears that cost? The purchaser of that particular home.
How
Now,
about, what new residential housing have we had that's not subdivision? Like in this empty lots in the city? Since this has happened, do you know offhand?
I don't have that data.
But have they put in sidewalks at that
I
time?
don't know the answer to that.
Because I don't think we can go back and say, hey, just because you didn't have to do it then, 20 years later, now you got to put the sidewalk in.
Well, why not?
Well, it's kind of like everything else. You usually grandfather things in, just like we grandfather until property is sold, unless you want to do it that way. Property is sold, like gravel driveways on Moringa Road and other parts. I just know Moringa Road because that's the big one.
Sure, of course.
Is once it's sold, then you have to pave that driveway. So unless you want to put in something like that with these houses,
which is possible, but that's up to you guys' discretion.
I can
That's
see
my
something,
recommendation.
I'm saying, that's part I could have a discussion with, but I can't see voting on something with 20 years ago when you bought the house and there was no ordinance on that, hey, now you gotta put this in, type thing. That's one, I guess for me, would be a no. Maybe possibly, not saying I would vote for it yet, but what I would listen to is like the driveway,
So,
changing it that way.
so if that's a bone of contention, I mean, that's something that, this council can certainly discuss. But what my recommendation to the council and to this committee is that any funding that we are going to attribute to working on sidewalks should be for the existing sidewalks.
Makes
Because-
sense?
Right.
So he's agreeing with you.
No, I get that. No,
But my recommendation is for those areas that don't have sidewalks, that's, in my personal belief, is that cost should be borne by the adjacent property owner, just like all of what we require today. So, I am agreeing with you in the terms of whatever funding we do, address to sidewalks, assuming that's what you want to do, that it should be for existing sidewalks, not where there are no sidewalks.
Yeah. But we had a vote and we decided that, we went through that about who pays stuff
Right.
and so on, and it was a stalemate. And so I guess it kind of stays the way it is, and that is that the city is taking on some sidewalk repairs. So I looked up our ordinance and Donovan, you can tell me if I got the right place, but it's 19.039.c.
you got that memorized?
I'm just saying that, I think I'm in the right neighborhood here. Sidewalks and driveways section, all sidewalks, walkways, stairs, driveways, parking spaces, and similar areas shall be kept in a proper state of repair and maintained free from hazardous conditions. For purposes of this subsection, hazardous conditions shall include but not be limited to gravel driveways with potholes deeper than 6 inches and wider than 4 inches. But I think this needs to be beefed up. Now, originally, why would they put this in there? If the city was responsible, because obviously this was put in for property owners. The city doesn't need to tell the city doesn't need to regulate itself. I don't think. Oh, only private property.
Well,
Sidewalks.
Chapter 19 is for building code.
Correct. Like he kind of led or insinuated that.
But
This-
the contractor has to put in the sidewalk. So that would be under that code, correct?
Yes.
Yeah, okay. So my point is that, we're taking this on now. If we're responsible for the sidewalks, then we're taking on this responsibility.
What was the number, Charlie?
19.039.c.
9C, here, this one.
Yeah, it's private property only.
Hmm?
That's for private property only, exterior maintenance.
So it doesn't include city sidewalks.
Correct.
Oh, okay. Well, forget that then.
I think the ordinance that applies to city sidewalks is under, since we redid this, everything's backwards to public properties.
I wasn't the only one. 612.
612.
It talks about the sidewalk repair program, but I think maintenance of the sidewalk and the right-of-way fall under a different category in chapter 6, which is, maintenance of right-of-way. And it just basically generally states that maintenance of the right-of-way is the responsibility of the homeowner. So do you determine that maintenance of the right-of-way includes the sidewalk?
So there you are. maintenance.
Well, that's where I was headed. That's where I was headed before.
What's that? Not according to our code.
Oh,
Yeah, you're deep in the utility portion of it. It's way before that.
it's before this?
Yeah.
There you go. So each property owner in the city is required to maintain that portion of the city's right-of-way commonly known as a tree bank or parkway. Maintenance includes, but is not limited to, installation and mowing of grass. Staining water, mud, and gravel shall not be permitted. Talks about that, so let's go on to here. Prevent interference. Prevent visual blight from the proliferation of facilities in the right-of-way.
This is just getting into the utility agreements in public right-of-ways.
That's all intent. These definitions. That would apply.
Where?
To be.
Prevent the creation of visual and physical obstructions and other conditions that are hazardous to vehicular and pedestrian traffic.
That's under the subsection for construction of utility facilities in the right-of-way, though.
Oh, you're right. So really, 17, it's vague.
Yeah, it's really vague. It
It's
doesn't
vague.
mention sidewalks.
Vague is appropriate. Right? I mean, that's because everything has been on this. But I guess, Lou, what kind of funds do you have in mind?
Well, okay, so when it comes to doing the city, the road master plan,
No, not the road. We're still on sidewalks.
okay, for sidewalks, the idea would be to use some of the 1% if you go that route. Originally, I was thinking MFT, but unless you're, in talking with Gary, unless you're doing large parts of the sidewalks, it doesn't make so much sense.
Large part, what do you mean?
Like large swaths of it.
But
Correct,
we do
Gary?
have a lot that need, don't we have large parts that could be done? Like a couple of blocks, I don't know how much,
Yeah.
what is it, 130,000 we have all that after the salt?
Gary, could you jump in?
Doesn't make sense to use MFT money to do a very small section of sidewalk. So you would want a larger program if you're using MFT money. Even if you have to skip a year, like let's say you only want to allocate 50,000, then I would say skip a year and do a $100,000 road program or sidewalk program every 2 years. That's what I was saying. But it's just not,
Oh, okay, no. I
It's
get
not very
that. That makes
fiscally-
more sense.
yeah, responsible to do a very small sidewalk program.
So is that the number, Lou? 50,000 a year?
No, I made that up.
I know you did, but I'm
That's up to this committee to suggest to the council.
Do 50?
Ish.
ish. Yeah.
This is like a option.
Correct.
Yeah, I agree, John.
So with the 1%, everyone's in a hurry to, or would like to see more road work done right away. What I'm suggesting that we do is we do a master plan and actually have a rate, using previous studies to put together what roads should be done. To do that, one of the things we need to do is do core samples throughout the city in 2025. But because we don't want to just keep waiting, and the public is wanting to see road work done, my suggestion, at least for 2025, is to take $250,000 of the MFT funds plus $250,000 of what we've already collected in the 1%. And again, talking with Gary for some suggestions, is to actually redo Air Street. Go all the way down.
Yeah, I agree, air and the sub sides on each side, I mean, because they look terrible. It was 2008 when we did that, and I cannot believe how bad they are after that amount of
You
time.
need more water main breaks, like I told Rob, and
Yeah.
we'll get it all paved again.
Yeah, just do the whole thing. Just break all the, yeah, right.
But what that does, it gives us at least a starting point to get start using the 1%, start showing the public what this, what they voted for. And then it gives time to actually do the core samples, to do the rating system, and come back with a 5-year plan. Now, to do the 5-year plan, well, it's actually a series of 5-year plans. What I'm suggesting is that we use in 2026, assuming everything lines up correctly, to go out for a $4 million bond. That will give us a chunk of money to be able to do large swaths of land, or of roadway. And then as far as being able to pay the principal and interest, to use the 1% to start doing that. And now these numbers are from August, so keep that in mind.
But interest has gone down since then, right?
But this was based on a 50, sorry, here's one for you as well. And then if you guys want a copy. So this is from Bernardi Securities. They're our bond counsel. What they suggested, and again, using 2025, in the first year, we would, in 2026, assuming again that we started in 2025, that the principal and interest would come out to $715,000 and $500, and that would go on for about another 4 years until the next bond would start up. And if you notice that we start up pretty large, pretty quick on the bonds until year 5. And then in year 5, we would start up with the second bond, which then instead of paying it all towards, or most of it towards one, the first bond starts to drop down in principal and interest, and you start shifting over to the second bond. And essentially that's dropping almost 3.4, depending on the interest rate, about $3.4 million every 5 years to get road work done. That maximizes the economies of scale. And I say that because the year that you're doing it, you know what the cost is. You don't know what the cost is in year 2, 3, 4, and 5. The rule of thumb, and John, maybe you can correct me on this, is that construction projects typically go up between 10 and 14% a year. So
I looked that up. I don't buy that at all.
Okay.
I just don't. Everything I looked up said 3.5%.
Okay.
And with the exception of last year, which was an outlier because of the inflation, where it was about 7.5 or 8. But it says traditionally it's 3.5%.
When I Googled it at the time, it said 13%.
It was up till 2020, and now it's all been over the world. Until 2020, it was probably about 3%, 3.5%. Now, since then, some of it is inflation, some of it they just, I think, tack on.
But even if it is 5% or 3%, the thing is, if you go year by year, you're going to lose some of what you could do all in 1 year
But you're paying interest.
per year.
You're paying interest.
Again, this is just a suggestion what you could do.
I know, but I'm just trying to, because if we spend $1 million a year, approximately what we take in, we have $5 million, we use $5 million over 5 years. Your plan is $3.4 million because the rest of it's interest. Right?
Say that again, I'm sorry. No, I'm sorry, I was writing something down.
I said, if we do a million, as we get it, $1 million, which was our original plan. In other words, bank $1 million, spend it, and then bank the $1 million and spend it year after year. That would be $1 million a year or $5 million over a 5-year period. According to your estimates, we would only be able to do 3.4 million over that 5-year period.
So this was not in your packets, and only because I had to hit Gary up and he sent it in this morning. And it's not Gary's fault, it's just arrived. And Gary ran through some numbers using kind of that same philosophy. And if you look down on $3 million program, you actually get a lot more roadway done.
Doing it that 1 year with
Doing
3
it,
million,
yeah.
instead of trying to do
You're
a million.
maximizing how much you
because
can
of-
get done.
Yeah, and I understand that, especially all the years saying how the way we did it with them MFTs is trying to isolate one area that was the worst area because you don't want to go over to another side of the town because the cost of moving equipment and everything. So without
Wait, so wait,
unforeseen-
before we go on, so what, show me how this works here. You just can't throw me a piece of paper and say,
No, and again, I apologize, it wasn't in the packet. Like I said, at the time I was putting the memo together, Gary was out.
Gary, can you walk us through your spreadsheet?
Okay, so,
Do you want a whiteboard? We can bring it
no.
in.
Oh, yes.
I'm gonna do this, don't worry. So, this is exactly what I sent you, Lou? Nothing's been changed? Okay.
The
So,
only difference is the color. I highlighted differently, but
so there's 4 sections on the spreadsheet. If you look at the first one, 5th column says average unit cost. That is the cost over the past few years of what the major items in our road programs have cost us doing a $250,000 program. So those are actual costs from contractors for our program. So if I just take the major items, which is taking the bituminous off, paving the bituminous back on, and patching. So we're ignoring things like pieces of sidewalk, pieces of curb, drivers, stuff like that. In order to do a $3 million road program, you would have to do this $250,000 program 12 times. So that would cost you $3.2 million, the box in the green. Everyone with me so far on that? Skip down to the 3rd section, the $3 million program. And if you go to that same 5th column, the average unit cost, those are actual costs from other communities that we have done $3 million road programs for. So in that case, using the same quantities, that same program is going to cost you $2.4 million. Because you're doing it in a large chunk rather than little pieces every year. So then, let's go to the second row, the $1 million road program.
so Donovan has a copy.
And I thought to myself, okay, well, what if we do so before I go there. So obviously there's economies of scale, right? To do a large program, there's economies of scale. So now that we're going, let's look at $1 million program. Well, I know that at the bottom, $250,000 program, you're paying a lot per unit. And I know at $3 million, you're getting really large economies of scale. You're paying less per unit. So at $1 million, where in between is that? Is it halfway? Is it 3/4 of the way? Is it 1/3 of the way? That's the guess. So what I did for the second one is I said, okay, those savings that we got from economies of scale, let's use 1/3 of that. So let's take away 1/3 of the savings, and those are the unit costs that I used. And so for $1 million road program, that's going to cost you $3 million. So what have we learned so far? We've learned that if you go $250,000 at a time, it's going to cost you $3.2 million. If you go $1 million at a time, it's going to cost you about $3 million. And if you go at $3 million at a time, it's going to cost you $2.4. So then I thought to myself, well, what if my guess on what the economies of scale are for a $1 million program are right? So then I did a 4th analysis at the bottom, which takes that savings right down the middle. So the cost savings I cut in half. And if I did that, then that program's costing you 2.8. So what is that telling us? Well, somewhere those economies of scale gets maxed out. Where that is, I don't know. But it's obvious that the bigger the program, the more per unit you're saving. So that's what I was trying to explain in this chart to Lou when he asked me.
Right.
And it does make sense.
And I'm just going to add in, whether it's 13% or 3%, Gary's assumption here for years 2 and 3 did not include any price increase.
Right, all these numbers to do a $250,000 program 12 times over 12 years, none of these include inflation, cost adjustment, nothing. I mean, they're all just now numbers. I didn't have
It's a
enough hours in a day
snapshot
to
in
do that.
today, right? It's a snapshot in time of what those costs would be today. You haven't taken into account, like you said, any inflationary costs that will come, and we know there.
Yeah, I guess, there's some variables. This is all assumed the same.
Mhm.
I'd be interested before I went here. We know the conditions. But I'd be more interested to see that cement thing is together, break apart construction plan. How, what order we should go in. And I think that's our problem right now. We don't know where to start.
So the proposal that I gave Lou, which is that citywide road rehabilitation study, it's a mouthful, is to take the passer data, which is broken into 542 blocks worth of data, and first update it from since when it's been done, because we have improved some roadways since that's been done. So the first thing is to update it to current now, then to analyze what roads should be done first, but we know if you went strictly on that chart, you're going to end up with little pieces here and there. So that's where the human element comes into to make it work sense. If you've got a stretch of road where 7 of the 10 blocks are in poor condition, that's a pretty good candidate that you're going to want to do the whole road. You also need to, in my opinion, come up with a resurfacing program and a reconstruction program. And they run concurrently with each other based on the budget that I'm given from the city. So let's just pick a number. You're going to do $3 million a year. Are you going to do $2 million in reconstructions and $1 million in resurfacing? You're going to split it down the middle? That's information you're going to give me. And once I know that, then I can come up with a 5-year plan on here's what roads you can do in the first 5 years reconstructing. Here's what roads you can do resurfacing. Whatever percentage or split you guys tell me you want to do. And then we just start going on the list. And every 5 years that gets updated. There's also, besides just the logics of if 7 out of 10 blocks on the street are bad, that's a good street to do. In my opinion, it would be good to have a north-south street and an east-south street to try to concentrate on in every quadrant, just so that there's one good street that people can use while we're getting this done. Again, that's a human element that is my responsibility. Other than that, it's all data-driven.
Gary, so I know I'm putting the cart before the horse, but say if for some reason we decide to do the bond and we have the 3 million, whatever, could we give you 2 options that you said, like the 2 million for the reconstruction, 1 for resurfacing, or split it in half to get like 2 different, areas, data and say, hey, how much we can do with that? Would you be able to do that if we went that far?
would I be able to give you two options based on funding?
Yes.
I can, but it's going to cost you more money because that is a lot of number crunching.
Okay, so it's
It's a
going to
lot of
cost too
construction
much more
cost
money.
estimates to
Okay.
put together more than once.
Okay, and that's what I was trying to get at, is how much more it would cost to have at least two options if we went this route.
But
To
what
see.
you could see, because I'm doing a 5-year program, no matter what percentage you tell me, you would be able to see, okay, in years 2 and 3, hey, if we did that road and that road for $300,000, that reconstruct it, that means we would have to take away these 7 of the resurfacing list. And you could play that game so that when I actually prepare the road program plans and specs and documents, then I would know. So to answer your question, I'm not really doing it twice. The data is going to be there, but I would have to know by the time I start that program what I'm doing, obviously.
You realize that under this plan, you would do Air Street and then nothing for 5 years.
Would be Air Street for 2025, and then going out to bid in 2026 to do $3 million.
After
worth of work.
2026, I should say, okay, then it would be 5 years after that.
You could do smaller projects, because you still have MFT money coming in.
Yeah.
This is all just utilizing the 1% and being very conservative that it's going to be at least $900,000 a year. Now, if it's over, you still put that money away.
Thank you, Charlie, on that one. I thought that was year one and we still had money, a lot of money left over with the bond. I cannot see doing Air Street all at once and then only doing small projects after that, especially we got the people voting for this to get us to 1%, and then we go and do downtown right away. There would be so much, that'd be political suicide for you
No,
guys.
but you would do Air Street next year, and then the year after that, and then the year after that, you're doing 3 million project. You're doing three. You're doing three.
But then after that, then you still have 5 years before you don't do anything besides
Yeah, but
MFT.
hold on, but you're doing 3.5 million at the rate of, so every year we're doing 250,000, right? Right? That's what we're doing with MFT monies. 350,000 into 3.5 or 250,000 into 3.5 million is 14 times. You're doing 14 times the amount of road. This,
Bond part of it.
yeah,
My biggest concern is I know Air Street needs to be redone. I get that.
yeah.
But there's so many more roads out there that are even many years older than Air Street that have not been done
I agree.
before 2008. Unless they can guarantee me that if we do Air Street, our downtown's gonna be in Naperville, St. Charles, something like that, and bring in the more revenue. But until I have that guarantee, I cannot see
Well, I mean,
myself doing that.
but that's a process over time. I mean, and we're never going to be Naperville. I was just downtown Naperville on a Saturday night. It was
Been
insane.
driving through St. Charles and Geneva for last week too.
Yeah,
so
right,
I know, yeah.
right. I mean, but can we get better? Yeah.
Yes, we can.
But I think it starts with that. And my question would be, why for next year would we not do more than just Air Street? Like West McKinley was going to be done.
Then
We did a bunch of prep work on it, and then we stopped. We didn't. Why don't we finish those things that 1 year? It was like 3 or 4 years ago. We
Fifth
never.
Street, which actually has part of Starline, which Starline is still running. Fifth Street on the north side of
Yeah.
Starline, that is
I
horrendous.
mean, why
and that's a main
wouldn't we do
traffic
900? What I'm saying
road.
is, why
That's-
wouldn't we do $940,000 worth of work next year?
I want to stop this. Let's not get into individual streets tonight.
No.
No, I just don't want to.
I know, but that's fine, Charlie. But what I'm saying is this: next year, since we're looking at putting together a plan, we can still do 900,000 next year. In my opinion, we should do 900,000 next year, and because we already had identified roads that we needed to do. So why not do those roads?
Okay, let's get back on that, on the financing part of it.
Right.
And so-
I don't have a problem. I see the economy of scale. I see the advantage of doing 14 times the amount in 1 year. I think that would be amazing. The impact would be seen right away.
We're seeing interest rates skyrocket.
Right.
We should be able to afford this with the 1%.
Yeah.
For every bond, which is good, and we can do a lot more.
Yeah.
I would love
Well,
that.
if 5 years from now, all of a sudden the interest rates are out of hand, then we just go back to a regular.
If I can jump in.
Yeah, go ahead.
You could do that. You absolutely could. It is up to you all to
Yeah.
decide. The thing is I was taking a very conservative approach on how to do this and being able to have some money from the 1% to roll into whatever we get in 2026 to start paying the bonds in 2027. Now, to help you out with the timeline here, year 0 would be next year. If you decide to do this. So then that would be Air Street at $500,000 or $900,000 plus whatever other road. That would give Gary time to have a team go out and do about 90 core samples. And then between that and the data we already have and updating some of it to be able to come back with a plan for 2026. In 2026, you go out for a bond. And then you do the $3 million or so in work in 2026. Now, where some of the confusion is, because we kind of overlap in conversations, is in year 2, 3, and 4, you use your MFT money for that $250,000 to do, be it just a simple overlay, to do something like that. And then with the master plan, we would have that opportunity. Then in year 5, you have another drop of about $3 million.
Can I ask a question?
Sure.
When would year 1 start for your next year?
So the bond money would be in 2026.
No, not for the bond, for your first initial step to the program. Like if you did Air Street, you would plan on starting that when?
That would be next year. That
Like
would be
2025
correct.
in fiscal calendar?
It'd be fiscal because we start May 1,
Okay.
which is
As-
also around the start of construction season.
Looking at the trend, and I just did through this month, we should have by the end of the year, calendar year,
Calendar year.
956,000. So if we used all that next year, you won't have anything to pledge as collateral on your bond in 2026. So you have to be careful of not spending all that down, which is why Lou wants to be conservative on it.
All right, but what I'm saying is you have $1.2 million, $1.2 million to spend, not 960. You got to add the 250,000 in,
Sure,
okay?
unless
So
you used it for sidewalks.
Why not do 750,000 and then set a little bit aside? I'm saying do more. What I'm saying is this: we passed this referendum a couple of years ago, and I think you need to show them a little bit more. I'm not,
Oh, no,
more
I
than
agree.
just Air
Yep.
Street.
So you
in
could
theory-
combine your sidewalk money with your non-home rule if you wanted to.
Yeah. Well,
The
wouldn't
point
do it-
is-
I wouldn't do any sidewalks until we figure out what we're doing with the sidewalks, and I think that's a much longer extended discussion.
And if you're doing Air Street first, and I'm just throwing that out there as an example, you all can decide what you want to do, but if you do Air Street first, you don't have to do the sidewalks. So you could add
no.
some of that in, and then also potentially add McKinley, depending on how, the discussions go and the engineering. And so then you could take 250,000 from your MFT, the original 250 out of the 900 that we're going to have by the start of next year. You can even add another 250 or 300 or 400,000 and still have some money left over, so that when you start collecting from May 1 to the start of May 1, 2026, you should have the 1.2 million available as pledge. I know it's a lot of numbers, and I'm always better with my dry erase board. But what I'm trying to demonstrate here is this is feasible to be able to start pushing a lot further ahead on getting road done, and then be able to show to the voters, the people that voted for this, and even not just the voters, the citizens of Harvard that are asking for good roads. You have an opportunity here to get this done. And that's where the core samples come in, because we don't know, like John was pointing out, we don't know if we have to do from surface up. Not to mention, as part of that 0 year, we don't want to just open up a road, not do anything underneath it if it needs to be done, and then have to open it up again. The last thing I ever want to do is open up a road that we just fixed, because then you're opening up to chances of degradation faster. So then that gives, by 2026, 27, an opportunity to get whatever needs to be done underneath done, if we have to get underground. And then now we've got a road, like I originally talked about 2 years ago, potentially going 20 to 30 to 40 years, as long as we do our maintenance, which I'm sure Rob will do that whole 40 years.
Are you gonna be here for 40 years?
He doesn't know it yet.
John, what
Okay.
were you gonna say?
Um,
Hold on, Charlie.
Well, I was just going to bring up, I know we're talking about Air Street. We kind of looked at a scratching last year. I do think it's important to do Air Street, just because it's done on both ends. And we need to close it up.
Yeah.
And we showcase our town every year. And I don't know if you've been to the parade lately, but it's tough to march on Air Street right now. You know,
I'm
it is.
using a big vehicle when I'm in the parade.
Tearing up the road.
I think it's very important to do that first, and then move on from there. I'm just not sure about the price tag. If it seems a little bit much.
Can we,
That's just me.
Actually, I just wanted to add one thing and then I'll turn it over. I'm sorry, Mayor, but you talked about showcasing. We have the parade for Milk Days parade. Okay. Keep in mind too that with all the other activities we're starting to push, like Day of the Dead, we're trying to push more things downtown. So that's the other reason why, to kind of tag in with you on that is doing Air Street as one of the possibilities, because we're trying to do more and drive more. And I know your concern was about whether or not that we build the downtown area up. Well, this is one of the ways that you can do it, and that's where Donovan has a challenge. That's where Stacy has a challenge, and actually Kim with the chamber, and she has very big plans to try to draw 10,000 people downtown at least once a month.
Yep.
So showcasing Air Street, and then coming out with a plan that shows that we're going to get things done, and then sticking to it is going to drive home that we're not just some little city. We are Harvard.
Can we move on?
I'm just going to interject here. I think what streets you do, whether it's Air Street or other streets, is a little premature at this juncture, but certainly having that discussion is an important discussion. What I really think you need to concentrate on is, how do you want to fund it? Do you want to do 1 year as you go? It's clear there is some economy of scale to borrow against the revenue stream and do more work at once. We've proven that there is economies of scale. What we don't know is, where is the tipping point? Where does it make sense to bond out 3 years, 5 years, 4 years? Where is that at? And so, yes, to a degree. And so, but they were a much bigger volume of money, so their economies of scales get bigger. But nonetheless, I think this body, the first thing you need to really kind of hone in on is, how do you want to design the program? Do you want it to be 1 year pay as you go? Do you want to bond out for 2, 3, 4 years? 5 years is being recommended here. However you guys want to do that to try and take advantage of economies of scale, I think that's a good thing. And whatever you decide, then we can generate and create the program around that. Staff has tried to put together to you our best estimates of where that economy of scale is going to be. But in the end, it's still based on estimates, because we can't predict the future exactly. So we've tried to give you as much information to try and make a decision about that. But I think that's the first decision you need to make, is how do you want the program to be? Do you want it to be as you go, or do you want to try and do as much as you can, as quickly as you can, where it makes sense that you're going to get the best bang for your buck?
Well, okay, so, myself, I think it's better to go year by year, to tell you the truth, because I hate paying interest on that and have the money go that place. Yeah, there is economy of scale, of course, and yes, there is inflation, of course, and sometimes, if you get a low enough rate on a bond, you can make some money in the meantime. But it seems to me that I like the idea of having the cash when we get it, and then we have it in the bank, then spend it like we had originally planned. And we also have to keep in mind that this isn't enough. We're still not enough. We knew this going in, that $1 million a year won't cut it. We're still going to go downhill. we still need to find revenue sources beyond that $1 million. And that could be a bond, but it could be one where we sell them and, ends up in some kind of tax situation.
I think the answer to that is to generate more revenue is to grow, so you have more sales tax that's generating more than $1 million.
That's one thing, sure.
Honestly, I think that's the only tool in your belt, unless you want to add in city stickers, which I've always been against, because the value of that doesn't necessarily outstrip the cost to implement such a program.
But I just feel the other thing is that, we put together the paver system has been out since 22, I think, and those tools have been there, and no one's used them to any extent. I mean, it is a complete package. It has everything in it. I went through the user manual, and I say you went through it, I mean really, it really went through it. But all the things that you want to find out are in there if we just did it, but we never did it. No one ever learned the program. No one ever tackled it, and it just sat there. And it was free. The two items that are missing in the pavers program, there's two, and one is the core samples. They didn't take any. So everything that they determined was based on the surface. And that turns out is not a good way to go. I mean, you need to know what's under there, and it's all over the place. Jefferson Street, for example, where I live, is concrete as a base. So that's good, right? I mean, it's how God only knows how old that is, but it's a good base. But there are other places that I think they just put tar on top of farm dirt in other parts of the town, which means you can't just put more concrete or asphalt on it; it won't hold up. So I think the coring idea is. But 3 months ago or something like that, I asked John about that. I said, well, how much does something like that cost, and how much value is in it? And a week ago or something like that, 2 weeks, he sent me something his company has done for Schaumburg with some tables and so on, and how they grade their roads and what they do with the core samples. And it made a lot of sense. I mean, they do a lot of determination based on those core samples. And that's one of the things that was missing that we need to put in. And it has to be first. It can't be after. It has to be first. Lou has this thing in as 1A and 1B. 1A being come up with a plan.
They're supposed to, and I apologize, they're supposed to go side by side.
Well, then they both be 1A.
I thought I wasn't trying to confuse people, but that's my bad.
Okay. Well, anyway, the core samples have to happen first, then a plan, and, along with all the other data we already have. And then the last part is, I don't think there's anything in pavers that it talks about curbs.
It's just road surface.
Just road surface. They didn't do anything about curbs. Very important as well, because that's how you get rid of your water.
Charlie, why don't we do this? Why don't we simply?
Well, I'm going somewhere with this. And but it seems to me that those things are very important. And what I had in mind, as a vision, is that I looked at the report that the other company, what was it, the contractor to you, that does the core sampling?
Midland Standard Testing.
Yeah, they can do those in December. We could get we need a jump on this, I think. And do they need to do, they have, I guess, 90 cores that they're proposing. And it seems to me that, do we need to do 90? I mean, do we need to do all the places? There's a whole bunch of places we know we don't need to do, I guess is what I'm saying. You don't need to take, for example, some of the roads that are in really good shape right now, and we know we're not going to do anything with them. Maybe we could save $1 or $2, because there's $333 a core is the price that they're quoting. And So I was I was thinking that maybe that could be reduced. We could hit some of the poorest roads and so on, do the core samples. Oh, and then maybe get this ball rolling sooner than later. I don't know why we would take another whole year to do something and decide what it is that needs to be done. It just doesn't. I mean, that's another whole year. We have all this data now. We have to get some more data that we can get in December. Is there any way we can move this up? And even if it means spending a little bit of the 1% money, it would put us so far ahead. We'd have this extra data that we could use to actually make good decisions, during budget time and so on.
There is money available in engineering. We don't have to touch the non-home rule if we don't want to. Depending on how you want to break it down. If you want to do the whole project total, 29,970, you want to eliminate some cores.
Can I explain the cores? Can I explain how I came up with 90 cores?
Please. Yeah.
So I told you there was 542 blocks worth of data.
Right.
You're not going to take a core on every block. That would be 542 cores. That's a little overkill.
Right.
So what I did was I assumed that they're going to take a core in block 1 and block 5. So that gives a representative sample of that street. You do that throughout the entire town. Yes, there are roads that were just done. We're not going to take cores on those roads. Yes, there are roads that are so bad, it has to be reconstructed. You still need a core on that road. You need to know what that subgrade is. So I went with the 5-block gap to come up with the 90, knowing that in the future, if I need another core in that middle, block 3, I can just get that done as part of that year's road program. But the 90 was, to me, a logical spacing to get an idea to help me with those cost estimates. So I know, does that street have aggregate? Does that street have concrete? Or does that street just have nothing? So that's how I came up with the 90.
I think it was, I understood that. I just didn't know if we needed to do, if we knew the worst places were, if we had to do that many. Evidently we do. That's fine.
Well, Charlie, the way I look at this is you do it once and you're done. Because they're going to core, it's not going to change, right? We're going to have those records. Yeah. So even if we don't do that street for 5 years or whatever, we have that core, we have those records, we know what to do. It's kind of going back to the economy of scale thing. With this type of work, a lot of it's mobilization. That means put the crew together, get the rig out there, you're paying for that, unfortunately. But once you pay for it, it's done. It's part of it, right? So keep them out there, get the 90, know where we're going. It is, it's 30 grand. Yeah. That is what it is.
So I make a motion that we move forward with the coring process as soon as possible. If that's December, then I would say let's allocate those funds to do that now.
Is that doable? Is that okay?
They can do that.
Second.
Well, that's what it said in there, that they could do it,
Well, we have a motion and a second, Charlie.
I would wait before you
Matt.
take a vote since Matt.
Matt's not here, sorry. I'm sorry, we're not allowed to have potty breaks.
Once that freezes in December or January, whenever it occurs, you're stuck until April?
We'll put that on hold till then.
Yeah, Midland's
But
not
I
doing
think,
nothing now anyway.
the point I was going to make, Charlie, is I think that we can plan for next year and then decide the economies of scale for if we want to do the bond. Because at what point, Lou, would we need to make the decision on whether or not to do a bond?
You'll need roughly 90 days,
Okay.
90 to 120 days, so you really don't have to start deciding until about November of next year.
Right, so we could do the first year, save a little of that money, save like $200,000-$300,000 of it, just put it aside in case we need it for the bond. If not, if we decide on the 1 year, then we just roll it into the next 1 year program. Matt, we did a first and a second on doing the coring process as soon as possible.
Okay.
All right,
It was a 90, correct? From
The 90, yeah,
okay.
because-
I heard what Gary was explaining.
economy of scale of it,
Yes.
yeah.
Everybody in favor of that?
Yes.
All those in favor, yeah.
Aye.
Aye.
Well, we have to do a roll call.
Okay,
Oh,
do
we
the roll call.
Because it's-
Okay.
All right. Lavallee,
Yes.
Schulz,
Yes.
Perkins,
Yes.
and Gorman.
Yes.
All right.
I know I
passes
missed
4-0.
that part, but where's this funds coming from that we voted on? Engineering part, okay. I know I heard Deb talking about that, but
So, just to, and not to spark up more conversation, but you still need a plan. And you started with you've got the core samples going, and thank you on behalf of Public Works for that. But you still need a plan, and I'd ask this committee to, I recommend that.
I wasn't
approval-
done asking questions because I was.
But let him finish. Let him finish. Go ahead.
So I
He
just
was-
recommend that you pass the master plan agreement with CBEL. So between the two, we can get going. Because one of your questions before was trying to get it ready.
Yeah, yeah.
Well, he needs time to get it done. And
Yeah.
May wraps around, or comes around pretty quick.
Yeah, so I
Yeah,
make
but I
him,
just had a couple questions.
sure, ask the
so-
question,
no.
Charlie. Well,
Yeah.
can we do this, Charlie? I motion that we approve the plan. Would someone like to second that, master plan?
The road rehabilitation study.
Study for the master, yeah, the road, and then we get a second, then we have discussion. You can ask questions.
is that part of the engineering as well?
Oh, that's fine, okay.
That's another 28,000 in engineering.
Yeah, that's what I thought. I thought it was almost 30 for both, right? So
Is there a second?
and where's this money coming from? What's this,
Should be coming from engineering as well.
is engineering as well? Almost 60 grand has come from engineering.
So we originally budgeted for quite a bit in engineering to go towards some of the sidewalk programs we're
The
doing.
post office, right? Wasn't that part
No, we
of it?
didn't budget for the
Okay,
post
I can't
office.
remember.
The Air Street 173 and Route 14 sidewalk programs that we've been working through CMAQ with, those are all coming out of the general fund. There's been some delays on some of those, so the money is there in engineering allocated towards those projects. So there is funding available that we probably won't be using, and I'm confident that we would be able to cover this
Okay.
under the same line item.
Second.
Okay, now, you have questions for,
Now we have discussion.
So how much of pavers are you planning on using and how?
I'm using all of the data. That 542 blocks worth of
Right.
data, that's all paper data. I'm going to be using that.
Just the data set, nothing else? Not the program itself?
Correct.
Okay. You don't like that program?
I don't know how to use that program, and I don't think I need that program.
Okay, so you're going to take that data and put it into your company's program?
Yes, and what you're going to end up with is a 5-year reconstruction program and a 5-year resurfacing program, and then all the other streets in order behind that. But that's like la-la land, right? Because that'd be 15 years away.
And those two plans would run concurrently, so we make sure people are clear. We're not gonna do 5 years and then go back and do 5 years of this. It's to run those programs concurrently over that 5 years.
Yes, so you're going to be doing a reconstruction program and I'm recommending you do a reconstruction program and a resurfacing program simultaneously. And does everyone understand the difference between the two? Resurfacing
Reconstruction.
program, you're just
Yes.
milling off the top and paving it
Yep.
back. Reconstruction, you're ripping everything out.
Yep.
New
Starting
subbase, new binder, new surface, new curbs, drainage structures fixed if you have to.
Yeah, it's like that was explained in that
yeah.
thing that you gave me, John. That, yeah. Although they had more levels, didn't they?
They had different, yeah, they had partial reconstructs, they had,
2-inch and then 4-inch, and they had a bunch of.
Well, there's also remove and replace, which means the aggregate down below is good. So you just take off whatever bituminous is there and you put it back. That's like an in-between a resurface and a reconstruct. So there are
Okay.
two things. Last thing I wanted to say was, in my opinion, 2025 should be the last year an improvement is made that is not based on data. Because starting in 26, you're going to have this 5-year plan, That's updated every 5 years. You're going to have the plan and everyone's going to agree on these are the streets we're doing. So only in 2025 that's the last year it's not data-based. And I suggested air for two reasons. One, you're getting really close to the point where you're not going to be able to mill and resurface anymore. It's getting to the point where it's going to get so bad you're going to have to reconstruct, and that would be awfully expensive to do. So if you're not doing it in 2025, it should be done pretty soon before it gets too bad to mill and resurface. And that's it.
Is that also lifting the brickwork up too? Would that be
No,
part of it?
the intersections seem fine. The brickwork in this intersections, they seem pretty.
Well, some of the bricks have sunk. That's why it's not.
Sidewalk.
There's some of the.
In the
Oh, you mean on the sidewalks?
No.
Or in the street?
In the street, it's
Well,
sunk.
yeah, if it has to be, I guess.
Yeah, just rip it out and
My,
blacktop.
I did not consider that. Mine was,
We
That's
spent a lot of
what you're
extra
thinking,
to do
Gary, huh?
that. Why would we rip it out?
I was considering mill and resurfacing. I wasn't considering the intersections or any brickwork. But if it has to be done, we can look at that.
Okay, any other questions? All those go ahead.
Schulz.
Yes.
Lavallee.
Yes.
Perkins.
Is this through the master plan?
Yep.
Yes.
Gorman.
Yes.
All it passes.
All right. Where we at?
So, what else is on here?
Grease trap.
Well, we passed up sidewalk
Yeah,
plan, but I want to make a motion on the sidewalk plan. I would like the motion we table this. I think there's some other discussion that needs to happen outside of this meeting. I want some more information, and I just think we're going to be sitting here forever talking about this thing. And
Understand.
Yeah.
And
I think the road is more important.
It is, and then, but till you changed it tonight when I read this last night, actually I liked what you came up with initially. But then Gary, with his expertise, mentioned some things, so trying to understand that, I didn't get it, I guess, tonight.
So I motion to table the sidewalk discussion.
Is there a second?
All right, second.
Any questions? No? Take the roll.
Okay, this one's a simple motion.
Oh, all those in favor?
Aye.
Okay.
Talk
Do we
about-
need to discuss the bond at all anymore? Are we done with that? Or
For now.
okay.
I think we should study this, though.
Yeah.
Come back with intelligent questions.
So we're up to Starbucks sidewalk? Is that where we're at?
No, grease trap.
Oh, the grease traps.
We still got an interview to do too.
I know. We got a whole bunch of items. Okay, grease trap.
All right, so the grease trap stuff, this has been something that's been sort of sitting out in the ethos and something that we wanted to get done. This recently came back up again with some greasing of the sanitary sewer up on the Route 14 corridor. One of the things that the city of Harvard lacks is a lot of teeth in our ordinance, so I provided all these in attachments at the end. The current ordinance for the city of Harvard, basically it's one paragraph long. The grease trap shall be installed. The grease content of the wastewater exceeds 100 milligrams per liter. It just says that each grease trap shall be properly maintained at no cost to the city without determining how often is it available for inspections, everything like that. So one of the issues that I ran into was the one I talked about in the agenda supplement, which is the business at 352 South Division Street, bless you, that experienced multiple backups. We ended up running the sanitary main on Route 14, and we ended up grease slugging the lift station. The lift station at the south end of the city outputs to a 4-inch forced main. So there's not much room in there for anything, and the utilities staff ended up hauling out about 20, Rubber-made trash cans full of grease with 5-gallon buckets, hand over hand with ropes, out of this lift station. And I can tell you that, I did another inspection today. The business at 352 looks like it needs to be cleaned because the grease cap and the solids blanket is there again. but the first time I looked at it, as stated in the document, the grease layer and the blanket had the imprint of the inspection lid, because there was no regular cleaning or maintenance of the grease trap. And, it would be in the best interest of the city to sort of take a look at this and determine if what we have is adequate. So I looked at some other municipalities, Marengo, Woodstock, Fox Lake, just looking through some of the code and what's required. Marengo has a inspection and a registration, so you have to register if you have a grease trap, and you have to prove an example that you've cleaned it at least once a year. Woodstock just recently redid their code in July. Woodstock says that you have to have it, the grease cap and the solids blanket, minimally cleaned every 3 months, but you can get an exception if you can prove that every 3 months you're not making enough fat, oil, and grease to cause an issue. You can get it moved up to 6 months. And then, Fox Lake is part of the water reclamation district, so they actually have language in their code that talks about needing to be cleaned every 6 months, or as deemed necessary. And then also there's schedules where you have like a non-significant or a significant. Fox Lake splits it out and says if you're a problem or you have significant grease, you have to clean it every 6 months. But if you're non-significant grease, it's once every 12 months. So I put together some sample language for consideration based upon what some of the other municipalities are doing, whether or not it is a determination of this body that there has to be a registration to account for staff time to go through and inspect these things. And basically the inspection is visiting the site, popping lids if necessary, if there's outside stuff, and then just double checking the records of, when was this cleaned last and by who.
I read the thing, and I make a motion that we approve it to send it to city council for approval.
Second.
Any more discussion? Any questions?
Yes. You put in here habitual, which businesses, because how long is habitual? Because that's a vague term.
So are you, in which part?
It might not have been this one, it was with the part when I looked on last night on the website, it was your memo, it says habitual users. 352, is that the McDonald's?
Yes.
Okay.
So one of the things that we've put in one of the things that I put in there was the penalty, and this was discussed at a staff level, where there's, your habituals are kind of determined by offenses. So there's like a first offense, second offense, third offense, fourth offense, and a continuing. And so, if you hit this once where, either we found out that you grease slugged the sanitary main itself, or we do show up for your inspection, you haven't been regularly cleaning it, that could be determined as a first offense in violation of the code, and then that would move you up the chain. So we would have a mechanism to deal with habitual offenders.
Okay, and another part with that was, so every business in town has to
So it
do
would
the
be,
$75 a year?
if that's what, and the fee was just something that was taken from another municipality, but that could be determined by this board, what would be appropriate. You figure,
How many businesses don't really have grease traps? Are they gonna be like a residential where it's?
yeah, there
it's
wouldn't be
minimal?
any, so, essentially, businesses with grease traps would be food preparation or.
No, I get that, but
yeah.
it didn't really specify that when I read your memo, just the businesses, so I'm
Yeah.
wondering, which businesses are we going after on this, or?
Grease traps.
Ones with grease traps.
But it didn't say that, it just said grease traps, but you could just say, well, you're a business, so you might have a grease trap, so I'm
Yeah,
gonna charge
but
you
you can't-
$75.
You can't check them unless they have one.
Okay, and I get that, Charlie, but the other part of it, isn't there a state statute where this has to be done anyways? By them?
But we want.
I'm trying to go back from my inspector class, this kind of seems like this should have been being done every year.
There's language that there's like a grease loading calculation and a formula for how often it's supposed to get cleaned. But I think what a lot of municipalities do is they have this internally codified so that they can address it without having to reference the state statutes.
I'm not against this, I'm just
Yeah.
trying to clarify all this. And
You know, and today I did an inspection before coming here, and I can tell you that the sanitary manhole in front of O'Reilly's is completely, you know, there's the fat and oil layer there that needs to be removed and cleaned because of one of the businesses in that area.
I know they're not grease traps, but how about the company next door to McDonald's that we have issues with it because they flush things down,
The
sanitary?
laundry,
Yes.
we don't have, the laundry does have, they have an output, but a lot of what they do is soap and soap loading or chemical
Well,
loading.
the material that's on that, because it's commercial laundromat, so it
yeah.
comes from every
Mhm.
industry. Is there something where we can put it on with them too? Because we have
They,
issues with
so
that.
because of the type of laundry that they do, they should have interceptors, and that would, like a grease interceptor, that would fall under this for inspection.
Okay, so they'll fall underneath
Yeah,
this.
and I
'cause
haven't-
We've
I haven't
had
been-
issues with them for
Yeah,
many
and I
years.
haven't been in there except for once when we had to shut it down to do some sanitary maintenance because their effluent is hot and nasty, and it's you know, you get down in that structure and it's like being on the Sahara Desert if the Sahara Desert had 100% humidity. It's bad, but so that's the only time I've been in there. We really haven't had any rag loading or other issues from them since I've been here. Now, does it mean they're not foaming a plant here and there when they're doing some cleaning activities? I don't know.
I know you brought this up, what was it, 2 months ago when we had the issue? It's been other years, and since I've lived here, there's always been issues with it, so that's
Yeah,
why.
and restaurant, you know, you want to call it Restaurant Row, you know, the Route 14 area, that corridor is a significant contributor to fats, oils, and greases.
So do we determine if we're doing the inspections in-house then?
I don't believe that's been determined. I know it was something that we were discussing at the staff level.
Any other questions?
Just a quick one. I don't know a whole lot about this, but shouldn't each of these businesses that do have grease traps and that they're cleaning them regularly, shouldn't they have some kind of record of
Yes.
disposal?
Yes.
You think McDonald's as a franchise would have that?
I'm thinking anyone would, because this is hazardous disposal, I'm assuming.
When this happened,
State law, they
at
need to.
352 South Division, the manager didn't even know who to call, which would tell me that this isn't something that they typically are doing. She was asking me, well, who do I call for this? Like, you should have somebody on a speed dial somewhere. Interesting.
Recognize there are a lot of contributors on
Yes.
on South Division that are contributing
Yes.
to this. Because there's a lot of
There's a lot of restaurants and
restaurants that are creating grease.
Yeah.
So staff is simply seeking more teeth to be able to enforce those particular businesses
Well, I
to
think
take
an
ownership.
easy way to do it is just to ask them for their records of disposal.
Yeah.
If they don't have them, well, obviously they're violating.
Hit them with the first offense right away.
Okay. Any other discussion, questions? Is this, gotta take roll for this? Okay. All those in favor?
Aye.
Pass. Where are we now?
Starbucks.
Huh?
Starbucks.
Starbucks sidewalk agreement, that's, somebody got a sheet.
Right here.
Thank you, Alderman Gorman. So the paper that I handed out before describes the estimate from the developer on what the cost of the sidewalks would be. The bottom paragraph there shows what that estimate would be with the 7.5% future construction inflation cost per year. As you recall, at the one city council meeting, they were seeking a variance to not have sidewalks. We offered them a bone and said, hey, we'll could possibly do a 5-year sidewalk deferral program, which they agreed to, and which we'll bring to council at the end of the month here. And so the original estimate they provided, I believe, was $25,000. Gary provided them with what the actual estimate might be, and this is pretty close to that. So it's not necessarily an agreement. We'd be holding a letter of credit or a bond in that total amount, $69,928.07. In the event they don't complete the sidewalks in a 5-year period, then we would pull on that bond or letter of credit to do it ourselves. So the sidewalks have been engineered and approved. I believe they've submitted them to IDOT. We're waiting on that approval so that when the time comes, or at least approval, not a permit approval, but approval from IDOT that the plans are okay. So when the time comes, if we do have to install the sidewalks, that's taken care of.
Is this just informational, or do you need action on this?
It'll come to you at the end of the month. I don't need action.
This is information for us.
Correct.
Thank you.
Now, my understanding was the McGuire Road, they were supposed to do prep.
Correct.
Are they going to do that, prep for so that the walking path can be put in?
Yes.
Okay,
Gary, in his comments to him, correct me if I'm wrong, Gary, did require that to be graded as such for a future path.
okay. Is that what this amount is, or is that, trying to understand what the
Top one is 14, looks like.
aggregate, or they would actually be paying for their part of the path?
That amount is for the actual installation of the path.
Of the path, okay, so they would have to pay for that, even though it's a county program that they're,
Yes.
okay, interesting, okay.
If they put the sidewalk in, we give them the money back. If they don't put the sidewalk in, we keep the money and put the sidewalk
Yes.
in. Either way, a sidewalk goes there.
Right, well, walking path. And sidewalk
Yeah.
is, sidewalk is concrete, walking path is typically, asphalt or whatever. Okay, thank you, that's all I have.
Thank you.
Delinquent water bill ordinance.
So this is something that's come up a few times in discussions, is the delinquent water bills. Right now, we have quite a few habitual offenders. I had the water billing clerk, Ruby, went through it today. And since she started, she's had the same, granted there are some above and beyond, but she's had 31 people that are constantly on the shut-off list when it gets mailed out.
And it's been that way
Yeah.
long before that. It's since I've been mayor, we have a standing list of people who are constantly on the shut-off list. Same people, same addresses, every billing cycle.
This is why I got confused. This is the one I was habitual.
Okay, yeah. So this is, by habitual, I mean that they show up every time. And then additionally, every time that we mail out water bills for late notices and shut-off notices, Ruby says she has to mail out anywhere from 280 to 350 shut-off notices each billing cycle. That's postage, that's paper, that's staff time. And then when we get down to it, she says there's about 150 of them that are habitual on that list that show up every time. So there's significant staff time in this. So there's some concerns, and anytime that we do these kinds of things, if we aren't recovering the money, or if we aren't recovering the funding in the fines, then essentially everybody else who's paying on time is subsidizing for those who don't. So in a couple of areas, right now, if we go out and we shut off the service, it's a $50 reconnect fee. So during the day, they have a property owner has until 3:20 to have it turned back on without incurring the additional $50 after hour fee. But if we get a call at 3:20 to go turn it on, there's going to be staff overtime that's involved because of the time it takes to go back to the residence, turn it back on. So this is just sort of a workup and an explanation of some of the things that we incur and some of the challenges that Public Works has. If we do an after hours reconnect, we only charge $100, but if we send, one of our senior guys, Public Works has a 4-hour straight time minimum on their call-in. So we get $100 to turn you on after hours, but it's actually costing the city $160.
It's just a correction. We actually only charge 50 if it's after
Right.
hours.
It's an additional 50.
So we're actually in the hole every time.
So it's 50 for normal hours and after hours.
So it's 50 for normal hours, and then after hours, we tack on an additional 50.
So, okay. Just
So
wanted to make
after
sure.
hours, it's $100, but during regular working hours, it's 50. And I will dedicate a staff member basically for 2 or 3 days to just do shut-offs and reconnects every billing cycle.
280 people always never pay their bill.
Ruby said that somewhere between, let's back up, 'cause I asked her today. She
Don't
said
pay their
two-
bill on time.
Yeah,
And
typically
they get on a shut-off notice.
280 to 350 people, 280 to 350 shut-off notices, and typically 150 of them are people that she sees every time.
150 every time but how many actually make it to where they have to be reconnected and get shut off?
So the list that, she provided me with a list of people that are here every time, and it's about 31 businesses that are constantly on the list. Generally speaking, when we get this list in its final form, it's about 50. So that means that, we have, B-Box locates and go out and we have to attempt to shut off 50 people. And I can't tell you how often people wait to see the truck in front of the house, and then they call Ruby and I want to pay my bill, or I just paid online. And then, until we get notification that they paid.
Yeah, you still have to send someone out.
Correct.
I guess the only thing with this part is, can we do it where it's the habituals and because there might be still a few people that get on that notice part of shutting off, one time forgot to pay. And I guess the one time I'm not a big fan of sending them a huge fee unless we charge them exactly how much it costs us every time.
So, let me pull this back up. One of the things I think I put in there to try to catch, if you want to call it non-habituals, let's see if I can.
And I just want to add in there too, Matt, that there are times based on what's been relayed back that there's, I hate to use this term, but there's administrative privilege to be able to
Yes.
waive some of those fees.
And I believe, I have to find it.
I haven't used that often, but there is that safety net for those who aren't habitual.
Yeah, I mean, one-time user, I guess, that's the thing I'm worried about. Especially if it's an old lady or gentleman that didn't pay, and then now you gotta, here's a $300 fine now to hook me back up.
So I don't see that, at least not initially, that my draft.
Speaking for the old gentleman, I pay my bill.
You got a good pension.
We appreciate that, Charlie.
And by the way, Matt, please keep in mind too that there are people that do go through some financial crisis.
That too.
And so we do encourage them during that shut-off notice to come and either call, email, talk with myself. And then if they're someone who's not constantly paying late, we try to work out some sort of payment plan. That's happened at a business level as well. But if there's someone like what we're identifying who are consistently late, we tend not to offer that.
I guess my other question, because of the habituals, is there a thing that's going to put in this ordinance is second, third time actually increases more, just like our other ordinance, I would say.
It's up to your
Yeah,
discretion.
that's up to this body.
Yeah.
I think what the bottom line here is staff is coming to you to tell you that the way the current system is designed, the way the ordinance is written, that we have people who are okay with it. And in fact, in our budgeting cycle, we know because of this habitual, how much we would expect to get in late fees. We budget for that because it's a full expectation that a certain percentage of the users will not pay on time. They just flat out won't do it. Regardless of all the steps we try to do to help them to pay on time, like create a calendar, went to online billings, you can see your bill, make suggestions on how to reduce your water usage, offer other types of payments that you can utilize.
I went on,
Yeah.
I went to the checking account because one time I missed it and I was a week behind thinking, oh no, it was this week. Dang it.
Right.
Came in and told Dave, all right, set me up.
So, but there are certainly those that they prefer to operate that way. And it is a huge tax on staffing time that we're not recovering the costs for that. And so staff is saying, hey, especially these after-hour ones where we have invested time and effort to try and get compliance, that the current fine structure or fee structure needs to be revised to encourage people to pay on time.
I would make a motion to approve this with a,
You can't. It's a discussion item only.
oh, okay. Well,
Sorry.
I would, to me, if I have an habitual user, I would say after the 5th time, I'm doubling that, $400. Because you want to tell them, basically, we want you to stop this. And if you are going to continue this, then we're going to just double, like after 5 times it goes to $400. After 10 times it goes to, $600. I mean, it's ridiculous. There's no reason for them to tax the city the way that they're doing.
So Jay, is that a suggestion for,
Yeah, I mean, I don't know, Rob, your thoughts on that, but
I would say that, I wouldn't say 5, because if it gets to 5, you've been doing it for a year. With our billing cycle, the way it goes, I would say maybe, your second or your third, because we've got so many people that are just doing this, and it's not unique to Harvard. Previous communities, I had a guy that said, like, stop giving us this notice. I never pay on time. I'll never pay on time. Just save yourself the $5 and don't send, don't hang this thing on my door.
Yeah.
But it's just one of
so
those
you,
things.
you ended up disconnecting his water every time and having to reconnect?
No, he would make us go out there, put the notice on his door, just
Yeah.
because. But he said, he's like, I always pay it the last day possible.
Yeah.
Stop wasting your time.
Yeah.
But in
I'm just
Harvard-
talking about the reconnect, right?
Yeah,
The
and-
reconnect fee is what I'm saying is when it gets to that point, the 3rd time, instead of it being $200 for after hours, it's $400 for after hours.
So what you're saying is you're okay with adjusting
Oh, I'm absolutely.
adjusting per what's suggested, but then additionally adding a kicker of
Yeah.
if you reach the 3rd time, it doubles.
Yeah, I would agree with that. I mean,
Second his.
Yeah, I agree. I don't think we need a motion though, but yeah.
no, right. I would just make,
Throwing it out there.
so this
Getting
is
on
going to go in
record.
front of administration committee then? Or city council?
well, since this would involve infrastructure, then yeah, it would go from here straight to council.
Okay.
And just for the record, you're suggesting these changes, not.
Yeah, I'm suggesting that, and then we can discuss it in council, but I mean, there has to be, these people that, if you're having to reconnect them multiple times in a year, they've got to know that that's unacceptable. It's not, it's a waste of city resources. I mean, we have a guy that used to call the police or the city 17 times in a day, or in an hour. I don't know if he calls anymore, but that individual needs to know that there's no tolerance for that stuff. Same thing with that. I mean, you're wasting you and your resources.
So
I would
I'll-
just double check before you set an actual rate if there's any statutory limitations on that, as
Yeah.
it is a public utility.
Right, I agree.
So that's something probably to check with TJ on.
Okay, thank you. I don't have any other questions. Thanks, Rob.
I'll just save this for the record. I'll just save mine.
Oh, Pat, want to pass these over to those guys, I guess?
Charlie, this that you just passed out?
Yeah.
Can you email me a copy so we can put it as part of the official record, just in case I start writing on this?
Yeah, sure.
Thank you.
I think there's probably, is there extra? Yeah.
Oh, never mind then.
Yeah, we can have mine.
There's extra.
This is why I have it as part of the official record.
This strategic vision, I'm gonna run the washroom, you guys.
Okay. Are we done with that discussion then?
Copies now.
I hope. Okay, then the next thing is strategic vision. I just passed this out. It's just a list of the the strategic vision, and now I got to share with you.
See, I knew you were gonna do that, Charlie.
The one that bothers me the most, when I say bother, I mean getting it completed, is a citywide infrastructure study to establish replacement plan for streets, sidewalks, water, sewer, and all that. I mean, obviously, we're on the road, no pun intended. We're on the road to getting the road and sidewalk thing kind of nailed down, and perhaps we will have by 2025 some kind of a long-range plan, so that's good. But it's a little unclear where we are with the other infrastructure systems, and whether or not we'll be able to come up with that. Launch a communications plan to share street improvement plan with residents. Lou, that's what we've been talking about. And then seek new funding sources for grants to meet pavement management system goals. Just the goals, not the 52% or 52 score on the what is that
Index score.
that index score that that they came up with. So, because we still, like I said before, we need to find other forms of funding if we can. And then begin street improvements and funding supported by taxpayers. We're doing that, and engage in Metro RTA pace. This is part of that sidewalk plan and so on, and anything beyond that we might be able to get some grant money out of those folks and so on to engage with those people. And then establish downtown wireless access, and it looks like that's going to be the easiest one of them all because it's going to be done by SURF. But, so this is just where we are on our strategic, kind of an update on where we are with our strategic.
So I will state on the first bullet point, though, a lot of that has to deal with capturing our current system on a GIS thing, which we have slowly been working on.
Yes.
For all of these infrastructure, let's call them layers, trees, sidewalks, water, sewer, and I think what's also missing on here is stormwater, because you have sanitary sewer and stormwater sewer. So all of those things I know we've been actively pursuing to get into our GIS system, because until we have that in a database, we can't create even a study until we know where everything is at. Rob, do you have an idea, a vague idea of when we might be at a point where we've got that data into the GIS system?
Which part of the data?
Well, let's tackle all of the above. So streets.
The streets are in there, road center lines are in there. That's typically stuff that's at a surface level.
Well, and honestly, we've done most of that study through pavers.
Yeah.
And the rest of it is we need core sample data to really have that study done, and that's going to fall into Gary's lap when we have that information. So I think from streets, sidewalks, we have the map that we've already shown you.
Mm-hmm.
We haven't established a way to attack that, but you do have at least an understanding of where the problems are. For water and sewer, that's a piece I don't know where we stand. Water, sanitary, and
So
stormwater.
the data that's been collected in the past was done without having the accuracy mode enabled. And a lot of that stuff too, the lids weren't being popped. So some of the stuff is mismarked or not labeled correctly, or, when the data was taken, it's 10 feet off or 15 feet off. Because the corrections network wasn't there. We have, I got us signed up for the corrections network through the tollway for free. So now we can get to, sub-inch accuracy or sub-foot accuracy. But it just takes time. Right now, I've had the guys out doing storm sewer, because one of the biggest things that we don't have right now is any data about the storm sewer in there. We have general water manholes, structures, sanitary manholes, or structures. all that data is there, but what we don't know anything about is storm. So that's been one of the focuses of this department for, some of the summer where we have openings, is sending a couple of staff members out there, inspecting, cleaning, and taking care of that. But that's a moving target. If I threw somebody at it, maybe 6 months. Right now I think what we've done so far with the storm sewer upgrades and the implementations with Trotter, we're maybe a fifth covered. And, we've spent about $6,000 of the $10,000 budget to get to that point.
And thank you, because that gives, I think the committee a kind of a snapshot of where we are today. And this is going to be a work in progress for certain.
And certainly moving forward, there will be more, more efforts to digitize the department, to use an iPad for service requests and stuff like that. Meter, we need to do a valve turning exercising program, which will have to be reflected. And, the easiest way to capture it is on a GIS program to say, hey, last time we turned this was 2 years ago, 3 years ago.
And then as far as the trees are concerned, I can tell you that the tree board in the city is working on grants to help us do a tree study and capture all of our current tree inventory. So all of these things are moving forward, but I wanted to give you kind of a snapshot of where they are. So.
Thank you. New business.
So this would fall under new business. I didn't want to jump in with all the discussion about the strategic vision. But I did file an IEPA intake form for water, wastewater, and stormwater, top to bottom review of our system, including expected lifespan of what we have, and GIS as well. It is a grant. It's similar to like the bike and walk path grant, but this one is just full blown. And because we're a distressed community, we qualify for full coverage. It is an outside firm that will do it. Jim Grant is aware of it, and he has offered to come back and help provide whatever input. And depending on who we end up as our superintendent, they will also have a lot of input and probably would be championing that moving forward.
Did we get the grant then?
We qualified for it. I'm not going to jinx it, but it's looking very good.
Okay, good.
And I just filed it last week, and so it was after I completed this report.
No problem. Thank you.
So I'll keep you posted. And Charlie, I did add it on the update on current projects list.
Okay.
Okay.
And any other new business? I have one item, and that it's a very quick one. When we put the crosswalks in on Diggins, we talked about, whether those were supposed to get signs and so on. And I looked up the minutes, and we were discussing signs, and we were talking about even flashing lights at one point. We had a price of about $6,700 per, and so on. But that's not what got turned into IDOT,
No.
It was just a crosswalk.
We requested what IDOT would allow or what they could do, and without getting into, and I can hear Gary flipping for it now, in order to put a flashing beacon there, we'd have to do a pedestrian count and traffic count on that street.
Right.
And the traffic count itself was, to do that, we talked about it just prior to this meeting, is about $7,500 just to figure out if we could get there, plus the cost of the sign, plus any improvements.
Well, yeah, I wasn't expecting that anyway,
Yeah.
because that discussion did take place, and it all, and then the sign only thing came up, just putting the two signs, one at the crosswalk and one so many feet away.
Yeah.
And Gary kind of said that can be done, but you have to be careful because sometimes it creates an unsafe situation.
Yes.
Because nobody slows down
Right.
necessarily.
It's the MUT, yes, the MUTCD has reduced the, even this comes up a lot when people say, well, I'd like children playing signs, or I'd like these advisory signs. And, MUTCD says it's a false sense of security, because just because there's a sign out, does that mean the person on their phone is paying attention? You know, same with the flashing beacons. Just because you press the button and you go to cross, does that mean that somebody's not looking at their phone and you just start walking across because the beacons are on?
Well, I understand that too, but I was wondering if we could just at least look into the cost of those signs, and just so we have an idea.
The signs themselves?
Yeah.
The signs themselves are coming. The IDOT's not done with that, so they're putting up the signage.
Wait, I thought they were gonna do that.
Yeah, they're still gonna put because like the type 1 is the sign with the arrow pointing down towards the crosswalk. So the signs are still coming.
Oh.
Yeah.
Right, with the traffic light that they're waiting on at 5 points.
Good job, Charlie.
Yeah, you're welcome.
If that's all, if that's it, then we're
I was thinking the same thing, I forgot about
Yeah.
until you.
So the signs are coming, and also for you and our listeners, the traffic post that is in the middle of the sidewalk, they're fabricating a new one that will be pushed outside of where the sidewalk is. Once that's done fabricating and put in, the one that's in the middle of the sidewalk will be removed, and then the sidewalk will be completed. But the gating item at the moment
Yeah.
is the new arm that's going to go outside of the sidewalk.
they're estimating about December. I believe last time I talked to him, he said the mast arm installation is going to be sometime in December.
Okay, well, that's some good news. That's some good news. All right, any other new business? No, okay, so, I guess we can go,
Motion to go to closed session.
second?
Second.
Okay, and then let me stop the stream before we go into.
All those in favor? Okay.
Opposed? Wait, I only heard one aye.
Aye.
All right.
All right, thank you.
I didn't know I could oppose.
You can.
All right, we're going to stop the stream and we'll
Thanks,
restart.
I don't know how it works.
We are now back in session.
Come back into open session.
I'll make the motion to come back in open session.
All those in favor?
Aye.
So what, do we need a motion on this to make the recommendation? I would make a motion that we accept this candidate.
What I need is essentially, yes, I will start to negotiate an offer and present to you at the city council, at city council, my appointment, and of course, then he has to accept it, but overall, it will go to city council. I'll bring an appointment.
So we're gonna need a motion here. Just
Not really.
general thoughts.
Just a direction, maybe? I don't know.
We're
You're
good.
directing us to move forward.
Just move forward. We're good.
Okay.
So then make a motion to adjourn.
Second.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Well, that was a long one.